What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports Morning Show. I am your host, Mangone. You didn't get one MLB show. You didn't get two MLB shows. You got three MLB shows with me and DC in the past, 24 hours, you said on the other show. And, yesterday's early slate didn't work out well for me. The main slate worked out well. So I'm here. DC, we'll head on over to you. How has the first two baseball slates been, and are you excited for this one?
Yeah, I'm honored and privileged to be Mangone's friend 2 days in a row, 3 shows in 24 hours, like you said, with Mr. Mangone. So things are good. And I was kind of the same yesterday. Early slate was a little bit rough. Late slate, pretty good rebound. So hoping to make it 2 in a row here with today's early slate, but also the main slate. Getaway day in baseball. So you're going to see we were talking before the show, some pretty bad lineups out there. These teams obviously travel to their next destination after today if they're on the road. And so you'll see, some kind of wonky lineups. But, not going to stop us from picking some winners.
Yep, definitely some interesting lineups. We'll talk about it. We'll break it all down. 7 games to discuss. FanDuel, they left off one of the games, the Washington-Arizona game. If you guys ever have questions in the chat, feel free to fire away. We'll do our best to answer those through. We got Daniel's friend. Well, there's only one rule. If you're my friend, you need to become a midget. So that's part of the rules. I don't make them up. So that's what you got to do. DC crushing it with the calls. And yeah, the Arizona definitely helped me, DC. I listened to the show with you guys, and Arizona helped me out for sure. I think that was one of the reasons why I got it home. When I was on the show with you guys, I know I had Devers as my play of the day, who did decent. The Red Sox as a whole, they weren't amazing, but I think I overall did Red Sox, Jays, and like Diamondbacks was like my mix. And it didn't win stuff, but most of the teams were in the green, so that was at least good. So overall, it was a pretty good time. Also, Title had the SO play of the day was Seth Beer, and I believe he did pretty good. So Diamondbacks were definitely a really nice stack on the slate. DC. We talked about it. We'll get lineups throughout the show, and we'll discuss kind of lineups. Like the first thing I noticed when I kind of pulled everything up and I'm looking at these teams, spent a little bit of time before the show kind of diving into things. I even looked at K rates, DC. Like I really dove in deeper than normal. I was like, let me get some stats going. We're starting to get some data. I just noticed like Leury Garcia is batting in the 3-hole, right? Like that's just like crazy to me. Like why is that happening? I see the Zach Collins. I know he's been crushing it. He's in the 4-hole. Like the Jays lineup looks a little watered down. Red Sox lineup, it looks a little watered down too. Like, how about you tell the people a little bit if they're like new to maybe, sometimes we always forget, right? You and I have been doing this forever, but like there could be someone showing up that hasn't played much baseball. What's like the big difference between like day baseball and like normal baseball? Because I notice a lot of the times you can have pitchers in really good spots because there's like changes to the lineup where there's like more K opportunity, or it could be on like the flip side on a main slate. You think it's going to be a good lineup, then like they just have their strongest lineup and you're not as excited about a pitcher. So what's some thoughts on that?
Yeah, you do see teams mix up their lineups more often during the day games. Every team wants to kind of baseball's one of those sports where they do rotate lineups. Everybody gets a chance to start once in a while, and you'll see it most often for whatever reason during the day games or on Sunday, right? You do see some strange lineups on Sundays as well. Obviously, those games are mostly during the day too. So something to keep an eye on. Like you mentioned, you mentioned a few of the guys that are in there that normally wouldn't be. Looking at the lineups now, I think we have all the lineups for this slate except for the last 2 games, Orioles and A's and D-backs and Nationals. I haven't seen those lineups yet. Maybe we'll get those during the show. But, yeah, always got to pay attention to it. I think maybe one mistake some people make, if you look at, like, team K percentages or just total team numbers, you got to take into account who's actually in the lineup on those days for both projecting hitters and obviously pitchers against those lineups. So good to point out some of the discrepancies that we see today compared to normal. And hopefully we can make the proper adjustments and pick the right guys.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like a big adjustment where maybe it's not like a hitter that's like Aaron Judge is a good example. You're scared of him to hit a home run, but you lose some strikeout upside as well. And if you throw in a guy that's not going to get as many strikeouts for you, like that can definitely move the needle a little bit. So some things to look at. We're waiting on those 2 teams that you said. Before we dive into it all too, you're a man of many hats, and we got to talk about the weather because Oakland and Baltimore has some weather. The key here though is that game's in Oakland, and like Baltimore is not getting out to the West Coast much. From what I noticed on my quick look, I think they'll just like fight through it, right? It's a day game too. So I think they have a lot of time to get that done. That's the other thing with day games. What's your thoughts on that game, DC? Do you just assume it plays? And even if it does play, though, is it safe for pitching as well?
Yeah, it's going to be one of those where if it starts on time, right? If they just start the game as normal, then yeah, they're just going to play through it. I mean, I can't remember if you were on the show the other day where it did look like Oakland had kind of crappy weather. It's like, when's the last time we saw a game rained out in Oakland? It just is something that just really doesn't ever happen. So as of now, I'm just kind of gonna assume that it plays, and I do kind of like both of those pitchers in that park. Two not big names, Paul Blackburn and Tyler Wells, but I do think they both have a pretty good chance to pitch well. Two bad offenses in a nice pitcher's park. So I'm hoping it plays. Thankfully, it's not the very last game on the slate. At least on DraftKings, we would still have the Diamondbacks and Nationals game to pivot to. Problem is, really don't like the pitchers in that game. So you could kind of end up getting stuck with the pitchers in the A's and Orioles game if it does, get delayed or postponed. So it will definitely be something to watch, but it's just hard to say right now. I mean, that game doesn't start for what, 4 hours, I think, 4 or 5 hours. So yeah, as of now, I'm going to kind of perceive that it's going to play, but certainly something that we're going to have to monitor.
Yep, we'll definitely have to monitor that. And hey, don't worry about fans like in the stands, right? Because Oakland, they don't have anyone showing up. Like they had like 2,700 people there. So
Yeah.
I doubt they're taking that into account too much when taking care of everything. But yeah, if you guys could please subscribe to the video. It helps us out a ton. We'd appreciate it. We got a bunch of people in here. We're going to talk some baseball. I'm pretty pumped for this slate. Still haven't decided if I'm going to more MME it or just do kind of one main team. I got some time to obviously enter into some contests. They're not totally filled yet. I'm MMEing on FanDuel. They got a nice, decent small dollar contest that, practice a little MME in. Definitely going to run some stacks, and that should be a good time. Saw some really good scores from some RPS members yesterday, so congrats to them. Landa's in the chat. I know he had a big win the other day. We've had some really good MLB hits over the past week or so. I know DC's been getting some love in the chat from some people. Richie Smalls as well. He's tossing us some love as well. So we love having you guys here. We love breaking everything down, and I think it's time to get in and talk about the pitching, DC. So it's definitely a really interesting slate because there's not a lot of hitters I'm dying to play. But There's also not a lot of pitchers I'm super excited about. I think there's some good ones, and I think a lot of them are close. At the top, I think Dylan Cease is one of the best options that you can go to. It's either him or a Carrasco. And then Joe Ryan, I think, is in the mix, but I do think Cease and Carrasco are above him. And then I think Ryan is on that next tier. Is that how you have it ranked, or do you have other guys that you're considering over those two at the top?
I think it's close at the top for sure. Frankly, the highest 5 price pitchers on DraftKings, I can make a case for all of them. That's in order: Dylan Cease, Carrasco, Joe Ryan, Kevin Gausman, and then Paul Blackburn out in Oakland as the 5th. And then there's a couple cheap options too that I think are in play. So, my very favorite slates are when we can kind of lock in a couple of pitchers. For me yesterday, Carlos Rodon, Logan Gilbert, they both came through. This one, I'm playing 20 lineups on DraftKings. I'll be mixing and matching pitching for sure. I think hitting is the tougher side of the equation today in terms of trying to figure that out. Although that's generally true for me. I feel more confident in my pitchers on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, I think you'll see, and I think rightfully so. I think you're going to see ownership really, really spread out among 5 or 6 pitchers. I was looking at the ownership projections on SaberSim, a whole bunch of guys, 15 to 30% owned. Makes for an interesting slate if you can kind of pin down the guys that are going to deliver for us. So personally, I have I think Joe Ryan number 1, but it's close. Kevin Gausman, he's been incredible so far this year, coming off that big year, signs with Toronto. He's got the tough matchup in Fenway though, right? So you're a little bit worried about that. Paul Blackburn has pitched really well. Looks like he's got a whole new level to his game. Again, a little bit worried about that Oakland weather, but love the matchup in Baltimore. Cease is the strikeout guy, but the problem is Cleveland doesn't strike out. They've got a whole bunch of good contact guys in their lineup. Their offense has been clicking. And, Cease, if he's not getting strikeouts, it can be a struggle for him because he can be wild at times too. So I'm a little bit worried about that. Kind of the same thing with Carrasco, who looks like, Mangone, we've been playing DFS long enough. We can remember back like 3 or 4 years ago when Carlos Carrasco was a borderline ace. It looks like he's back to that level. He had dealt with a whole bunch of injury stuff. I think he had a cancer scare, if I recall correctly, a couple of years ago. So he looks like he's back. Problem is for him, again, tough matchup against San Francisco, who does put the bat on the ball pretty well. And then Joe Ryan, who I do really like for the Twins. Got my Twins jersey on today. Byron Buxton back for the Twins, so you got to love that. But yeah, Joe Ryan, another good option. So I don't know. What are you seeing here at the top? These 5 guys, Cease, Carrasco, Ryan, Gausman, Blackburn. I like them all. And, big part of this morning is trying to figure out which ones I want to get the most exposure to.
Yeah, so let's start with Blackburn. He's someone I kind of wanted to really play, but like I need to know what's happening with that weather. That's like the big concern I'm having there. Joe Ryan, I know he's like a talented kid. I don't hate him in this spot, but like I do feel like if I'm going up there to like 9-3, I feel like I'm leaning going a Carrasco or a Cease. I do have some concerns with Cease. Not because I think he's a good pitcher, but I think like the lineup he's going against, right? Like there's some concerns with the way the Guardians are hitting right now. But it's just not just that too. Like he has ownership, right? If you told me he wasn't owned, of course I'd just like shove on him probably. But there is some ownership on him where that can vary some lineups at times. And there's a lot of other pitchers to go to. It's not like it's just Dylan Cease sitting at the top by himself. Carrasco is another one that, hey, he's on like a Mets team now. And like sometimes like when like you're hanging out, we kind of make this reference at Run Pure Sports. You're hanging out with Big T, you're hanging out with JSU. Helps you maybe step up your DFS game, talking DFS with them, right? Carlos Carrasco hanging out with Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. Maybe he catches a couple things here and there. And he has looked pretty good. Like the problem is it is that Giants lineup, right? And the Giants aren't like a team like I typically decide to target. So that is one of the key things with these guys at the top. The one guy I haven't talked about yet that I really want to discuss with you, because I think he's kind of like my sneaky pitcher of the slate that people might not be on. It's Kevin Gausman. It's definitely not a spot I'm super excited about because you look at like the matchup, Red Sox in Boston, extreme hitters up. Like there's a lot of like small little signs that I'm like not super excited about. But if you look at this lineup, I'm not really that scared of this Red Sox lineup. I mean, yes, that Devers and Bogarts right there, like that's strong. But there is no JD Martinez, at least in the lineup. If you look at the bottom there, you got a righty in Gausman. He gets to go up against Dahlbach, Jackie Bradley Jr., Vasquez, Shaw, who definitely can get you an 0 for 4 with 4 Ks, and then Christian Arroyo. Like this is just not the strongest Red Sox lineup that you will see. Taking JD out helps. Of course, you can make arguments that JD can strike out a ton too, but I think it's a pretty good spot for Gausman, and I like him a ton here. What's your thoughts on that? Because he's someone that I'm considering playing, and I think, yes, you make good points that like ownership could get spread out of it, but I think he's someone that gets a little bit lost in the shuffle here.
I think so too. Yeah, I think he'll be under-owned on this slate compared to what he normally would be for his talent level. And then, just the matchup against the Red Sox in Fenway, I get it. People are going to shy away from that. You mentioned the hitters umpire. That's not great. But Gausman isn't a guy that really relies all that much on called strikes. He's a guy that just generates a ton of whiffs, specifically with that split finger fastball. It's like a change-up hybrid that people just swing over the top of. It almost doesn't matter who he's facing. If it's working, he's going to get the strikeouts. And like you mentioned, that Boston lineup, not that scary. I mean, Trevor Story hasn't really hit yet for Boston. He hasn't been too dangerous. Of course, the middle of it, right? Devers, Bogarts, Verdugo is scary, but beyond that, it falls off in a hurry. So I think Gausman has pretty tremendous strikeout upside. I think I would take his strikeouts over everyone on the slate, including Dylan Cease, just because of the matchup for Cease, and that contact-oriented Cleveland team is a little bit scary for Cease's upside. I'm in on Gausman. I'll certainly have exposure there. I did pull up the Oakland weather radar while you were talking. They're going to play. I'm saying Oakland's a go here. And if we have to adjust closer to game time, we will. But I'm going to operate that game's playing. And if it does, Paul Blackburn, I've been impressed with what I've seen from him so far. He hasn't been a pitcher that we've targeted in the past, but Oakland has a kind of a way with pitchers, right? We'll see the guys emerge there and pitch pretty well, especially in that big ballpark with all that foul territory. It's just a safe place to pitch. And I'm not really worried about the weather looking at it. Of course, things could change. I could be wrong, but Yeah, I need to see some scary looking radar to get me off of an Oakland game, given that they pretty much always play. And I didn't see that. So Baltimore, Oakland, I would proceed as if they're going to play ball.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. I know Stevie Boynton's probably somewhere saying daytime A's in the Discord chat. He loves talking about that. So there's a lot going on in this slate. I also want to mention, I think there's some pitchers down low that we can play as well. How about we finish up the top though here, DC? Like, let's try and like rank some of these guys. So for me, like, I really like Gausman. I think Gausman, if you look at the K props, like 6.5 is his strikeout prop. Ceases is at 6.5. Carrasco 5.5. Joe Ryan at 4.5. Yes, there's juice on like I think the juice is plus 105 on Gausman and then minus 108 on Cease. Then Carrasco's is minus 127 on the 5.5, and then Ryan's is minus 141. My lean is I think Gausman is my number one. I think I'm shoving on him. I think it's a good spot. So he'll be my one. My two, then I don't know what to do with like the other ones. I kind of lean Blackburn as the two, especially after you saying the weather, because I don't have a K prop on him, but he's someone I kind of went into the slate wanting to play. And I feel like if I live in this like mid 8K range with both my pitchers, it'll just be like I'm already feel like I'm kind of unique with it, and I just think it's going to be spread out, so it's not too big of a deal. But Cease, Carrasco, Ryan, like I think they're all solid, but I just feel like the step down to Gausman and Blackburn, I kind of like targeting Baltimore, and I just think that Boston lineup's not that good, and I'm a believer in Gausman. That's kind of my rankings. I got them at 1 and 2, and then I guess I'll put Cease at 3, just because I think he's like the most talented pitcher on the whole slate.
Yeah, I agree with Cease being the highest. I think it's close between Cease and Gausman. I think I'll take the discount with Gausman over Cease. I think Cease is probably going to be the one that I fade out of this group. I'm seeing the highest ownership projection on him. He is the highest priced, obviously. So anytime that the highest priced pitcher is also the highest owned, and it's close for me, right? It's close for me between these five guys. I know I said that a number of times, but it's really true today. So Cease will probably be the one that I cut out of my player pool of these four. So we'll have exposure to Carrasco, Ryan, Gausman, and Blackburn. I'm going to go ahead and rank Blackburn number 1 for me. I'll go Blackburn 1, Gausman 2, Carrasco 3, Ryan 4. But again, very razor thin. I do like all four of these guys. Problem with Joe Ryan, it looks like a pretty contact-oriented KC lineup, especially at the top of it. Nicky Lopez never strikes out. Whit Merrifield, Benintendi, Perez, Santana, all good bat to ball type of guys. So Ryan's strikeout could be hard to come by, but he's a good pitcher. He can go deep into games, and it's a good place to pitch in Kansas City. That big ballpark. You got Byron Buxton back patrolling center field. And I don't know if you saw you probably didn't. There's a tweet today, a guy that does kind of ballpark ball analysis. I know we talked about it a lot yesterday, Mangone, but something like since 2016, like four of the lowest home run per plate appearance baseball days, like across the league, right, have come this season. Then the season is like 2 weeks old, and this is for the like it's been like 1.5% home runs per plate appearance in 4 days this season. So the ball clearly has changed. Doesn't mean it couldn't change back at some point, but home runs are really, really hard to come by right now. So like pitchers that are, home run prone, if that's their biggest weakness, they kind of got an advantage right now because those are turning into outs for the most part.
That's
right?
Kevin Gausman right there, a guy who can get hit hard at times, and like it just if it's not going to affect and the ball's going to drop and die, like he's just going to mow. I feel like all season long. Yeah,
it's true for Gausman. Joe Ryan, that's his big weakness. He likes to throw a lot of fastballs up in the zone, challenge hitters that way, and those typically result in fly balls, but those fly balls are not getting over the fence right now. So pitchers like Joe Ryan, Gausman can succeed. Again, in Oakland, places where it's hard to go deep, right? Where they've got deep fences, a lot of foul territory. Like you want to be a fly ball pitcher in Oakland right now. That's Paul Blackburn. He's going to throw strikes. And then, if we go down to the cheaper range, Tyler Wells for Baltimore. Don't know exactly how many innings we'll get out of him. He threw 54 pitches in his first outing, then 64 through 4 innings back on the 16th. So I think they're going to ramp him up probably into the 70s here. He's another guy that throws a lot of high fastballs. sits 95, 96 up in the zone. And that's going to be a recipe for success in Oakland, I think, for a guy like Tyler Wells. So I do like the pitching matchup, both Blackburn and Wells. Wells, the cheapest pitcher on the board. I think you could argue he's the best point per dollar pitcher, but you might need the raw points from some of these other guys, especially on kind of a tough slate for hitting. I think we could see a fairly low scoring slate like we often have, kind of frankly, for a lot of these baseball days with the lack of scoring. So yeah, Tyler Wells at the bottom, I think is a good option if you can find some bats to spend up on.
Yeah, a couple things in Discord chat. Hunter says people are scared of the Guardians. Cease can easily get 10Ks. Yes, I agree. Cease can get 10Ks. Here's the thing. It's my reasoning for not wanting to play Cease as much as what I agree with, like kind of the conversation we just had about one team is a lot better at making contact and not getting as many strikeouts compared to some of these other teams. But the big thing, this is the biggest reason, looking at projections, I don't see a difference between a lot of these guys at the top, right? There's not a big difference between them. And you say that people are scared of him. Cease is going to be the highest owned pitcher on the slate. So like, that's not true. Like, people are not scared of him. He will be owned. The other guys are going to be like half the ownership. And I think they're still very good plays. And also based on some of the stuff DC said, I agree with him. I think that there's an advantage to be able to take here. And on top of that, the lineup, like maybe the projections haven't adjusted yet for that Red Sox lineup. And I don't think it's been great. So
I think the biggest adjustment with the lack of offense and specifically the lack of home runs is you want strike throwers right now, right? Because you can safely attack the zone. Like let him hit the ball a little bit. Try to get in head and counts. Keep that pitch count low because the ball's just not flying right now, and it's safe to give up contact, specifically fly ball contact. It's just, and the problem with Cease is he can be wild, right, and inefficient with the pitch count. Whereas these other guys, I feel pretty confident they're going to throw strikes, and so far that's been a winning recipe. So I think you can make the case for fading Cease. Sounds like we're both going to go down that route, and of course that doesn't mean if Cease is on his game, he can mow down any lineup. He could get 10 strikeouts. It wouldn't shock me whatsoever. But there's a lot of good pitching options, and it sounds like you're pretty confident Cease is going to be the highest owned among them, Mangone.
More than likely. I mean, I feel like, especially when you have day baseball slates, you have value that shows up. And we also don't like starve for value in DK the way it's priced right now, where people they're like, oh, I have all this salary. Let me plug in like the best pitcher on the slate. And like Hunter said in the chat, like he'd play him if he was 80% owned. Like 80 would just be way too high for me. Like it's especially on this specific slate where there's a lot of really good pitchers. So and like if you think it's him, then go for it. Like I'm playing 40. I think I have 40 teams on FanDuel. I forget how much I registered for. I'm gonna have Cease on some of those for sure. Like I'm gonna have some exposure to him. I don't know how much it's gonna be, but I will have him. And then DK, I don't know what I'm playing yet. I'm either playing one team or I'm playing like 20 to like 50. I haven't decided yet, but if I do play MME, I will have some Cease. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like this Blackburn and Gaussman are like the combo that I like a lot. I know we talked a ton about pitching, but I think it matters. I know Greinke's being discussed in the chat. I don't think he has enough upside. Someone said in 2 starts he has 1 strikeout, which I don't even know if that's true, but I believe it because it's Zach Greinke. There are some other good cheap pitchers that we still have not discussed. I think that you can go to a Tanner. I'll probably butcher his last name, Houck. I think he is in play as well. That Jays lineup, I'm not really that scared of it. There's some bats that are worrisome, but I think you can go to him. He's talented enough. I think Jordan Montgomery against this Tigers team, it does make sense, and he is a cheap value that you can go to. I just don't think I need to go to those values today. I think that's one of the reasons why I don't see myself loading up on that. Do you have similar thoughts as me, DC? There are some good pitchers down here, but I just don't feel like I need to use my money that way.
Yeah, Greinke a fade for me. We just need to see more strikeouts from him. And I really like the Twins today. Getting Byron Buxton back in the lineup should make a big difference for them. Greinke can be susceptible to right-handed power, and the Twins certainly have some of that. So he's out the table. I mentioned Tyler Wells. He's my favorite of that bunch. But there are definitely, in a different universe, on a different 7-game slate. Yeah, Tanner Houck, Jordan Montgomery would be fine options. It's just I already like a lot of the guys at the top. I think they have more upside than both Montgomery. Actually, Tanner Houck has quite a bit of upside. He's a good strikeout pitcher, and got up to I think 89 pitches last time out. So he's a full-on starter at this point. Which
I mean, PC, look at that lineup, right? Like this isn't your typical Jays lineup. It goes Tapia, Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., and like you can definitely challenge some of these guys. And I'm not saying I want to challenge then you challenge Zach Collins. Like, he doesn't have someone you're scared of behind. I know Collins has been hitting better, but I'm not scared of him. Gurriel, Chapman, Biggio is terrible. I don't know what this other dude is, a Gosuke, Kato, and
I've
Bradley
never heard of that
Zimmer.
guy. I don't believe he's a real person.
Yeah, I mean, the point I was getting at is, like, you can play a Tanner Houck because the upside that he has, and this lineup just isn't scary, and you're going to get him at like no ownership. And I'm sure people are going to play Toronto Bats because they have enough value plays that you can mix in. You know, another reason why everyone's been loving Zach Collins and he's been great. And it's like, oh, I can plug in Zach Collins at catcher. I can plug in Bichette and Vlad Guerrero Jr. And that's like a really nice 3-man stack where I think people will go to that.
Yeah, you're kind of talking me into some Tanner Houck here. He's a guy I've always liked, been pretty high on. Kind of looking up some of these Blue Jays scrubs at the bottom. There should be strikeouts there for Tanner Houck. Looks like this Ghost K Kato K is a decent amount. Bradley Zimmer can't hit. Kevin Biggio really hasn't shown anything. Chapman's got strikeouts, right? So yeah, I think this lineup for Tanner Houck looks kind of tasty. And Mangone, I think we might get pitchers in that game pretty low owned. Both Gausman and Houck, you could argue they've got as much upside as anybody on the slate. Low ownership, fair prices. I kind of like it. Going with the pitcher stack in Fenway is not something we're gonna often recommend, especially when they're facing the Blue Jays. But on this specific day, I do think it makes some sense.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you can get away with it. Like, it's like I think you can do a bunch of pitcher pairings. You could do a Blackman paired up with Wells, right? Who you talked about. Like, there's a lot of different things you can do. I'm curious to hear once we get the hitters and talk about it, because it definitely gets a little bit rough when you get there. Talk about Jordan Montgomery some, because like I did pull up this Tigers lineup, and yes, the Tigers are a team that you can attack. But when I just looked at the lineup and did a quick eye check, I was like, Grossman, Scope, Candelario, Miguel Cabrera, yeah, he's old and dusty, but he can easily sometimes get a hold of one. He's been hitting a little bit better. Austin Meadows in the 5 hole. Eric Haas in the 6 hole, who has some power and pop and gets a lefty. He could definitely hit one. I don't know what his, Spencer Torkelson, I've seen him, but I don't know him that well. And then Castro and Reyes. Overall, like, that Tigers lineup is one that, like, you typically like to target them, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be, right? Based on like seeing Montgomery's projection. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, Tigers maybe more than any other team. Looks like maybe the Twins too, kind of rolling out the best lineup that they could, right? It's still not great, but it's probably good enough for me to stay away from Jordan Montgomery, who I am seeing pretty high ownership on. Just Montgomery,
he's projecting really well, DC. That's why that's why when I wanted to look at the Tigers lineup, and again, it's early in the season, right? I'm still not adjusted to all these new lineups and players, but like it did feel like a very high projection for what I was seeing from this Tigers team.
Yeah, we just don't see Jordan Montgomery go very deep into games very often. He's the type that can start off well, right? The first or maybe even second time through the order, but rarely does he have success the third time through. He gets kind of a quick hook. And, I would presume that we'll see something similar. So he's in play, right? 6,900 for a player. He's projecting well for a reason. I get it. And like I said, on a different slate, I would have no problem playing Montgomery. I might even have a little bit of exposure today, but I do have him, he's my 5th or 6th or maybe even 7th favorite pitcher on this slate. There's just a lot of options to go to. And he will probably, kind of make not get out of the cutting room floor for me.
Yeah, definitely strong pitching slate for sure. DC, any final thoughts here on the pitcher position?
I think we covered most of it. I think I will end up with the most. My highest owned pitcher will be Blackburn, I think. But yeah, I'm going to mix in Gausman, Ryan, Carrasco, Houck, and Tyler Wells. And I think that's 5 pitchers. So maybe 6. So yeah, it's just one of those slates where I think you're smart to mix it up. If I was playing one lineup today, I think it would be Blackburn. And then how low is Tanner Houck projecting for ownership? Is he must be pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing like around like that teen single digits range. Like,
yeah. So maybe Tanner Houck, I might roll the dice there. I'll do a little more digging into him as we kind of go through the slate.
Nice. Yeah, I was just looking at the DK lobby. It looks like I like to always play that 250 4 entry max. That thing's sold out. So I'm gonna do some MME. MME's been fun, so I'm gonna continue to do that a little bit. So getting those entries in now. I got to figure out how I'm gonna handle the offenses though. That's the big concern I had because it's tough to figure out offense today. I'm just gonna say that right now. It is not the easiest slate for that. Maybe 4-man stacks are more in play that we talked about, DC. I definitely like leading the 5-mans though. So we'll talk about that. Guys, if you could, like and subscribe to the video. Helps us out a ton. We have 330 watching. DC, only 85 likes, right? We're going to have to get more likes to be able to give those plays the day out. So smash them in there. We got Matthew Moore in the chat. He said that Arizona stack from yesterday was so good. So, DC, we're going to have to find an Arizona stack again for the people because this is not the easiest slate.
It might be Arizona again.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe we'll fire back with them in this spot. Let's talk about stacks before we kind of dive into like the position by position because when I opened up the slate and yesterday we attacked Bieber a little bit with the White Sox and it didn't work out. So I said, okay, I can't be a fool and not say like I can't consider the White Sox. Like I have to consider them, but will I actually do it? And I hate Luis Garcia. Maybe it's some bias, but when I saw him in the 3 hole, I was like, that might be the sign to get out on that. But I mean, Gavin Sheets is in the 7 hole. Eloy Jimenez at the 6 hole. Like this isn't the worst team, and Plesac's a guy that you definitely can attack. So I thought White Sox stack was one that was in play for me. I think when I looked at a lot of these lineups, I was like, hey, this Yankees lineup at least doesn't look too watered down. I mean, it's got enough guys. So I think that the Yankees lineup sort of in play for me because of the power and pop that it can have. Seeing Byron Buxton in that 1 hole, I figured you'd be, stroking the Twins, so I'll leave that to you. I thought I would like the Red Sox and Jays. Don't like them as much because I think those lineups are not my favorite today. Nationals and Diamondbacks, that was one that stuck out that I said, okay, that's maybe some offenses I can get behind, but I haven't gotten it completely narrowed down yet. What are some stacks that you are on here so far, DC?
Yeah, a few that I like. I do think I have the Yankees number 1. You don't love the park, Detroit. It's a little bit cold there, but the wind is blowing out. It looks like to left field, which obviously the Yankees have mostly right-handed power in their lineup. And then the real appeal, though, like with the Yankee stack, is going up against Michael Pineda, who he got to spring training late. I think he had a visa issue. He can be really home run prone at times. And I get the sense the Tigers lost a couple pitchers to the injured list. I think they lost both Matt Manning and their young guy whose name is escaping me at the moment. But
Casey Mize?
Yeah, maybe not. Casey Mize might still be healthy. Point is, Detroit's rotation is not good, despite having talent. And I kind of think Michael Pineda might not be making this start if they didn't have a shortage of pitchers. So he might not be quite ready. He might be not. This is his first start of the year. May just, I think, the one start at AAA, and he could be rusty. Velocity could be low. Wouldn't shock me at all. And if you're struggling against the Yankees, falling behind those guys, I know it hasn't been the best start for the Yankee bats in general. They can punish you, no doubt about it. So I do really like the Yankees. I think I've got them number 1. The Twins, I will go number 2. Zach Greinke. Well, I mean, he's got 1 strikeout through 2 games. Coming off a rough year, it kind of seems like Father Time might be finally coming for Zach Greinke. It's been a struggle so far, despite he's limited the damage. But if you're not striking anybody out, eventually, things are going to turn against you. Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa in particular at the top of the lineup, I think are really strong plays. And then I would really like both offenses. It's not available on FanDuel, but on DraftKings in that Diamondbacks Nationals game. Diamondbacks were heroes for us last year. I know a lot of winners in the chat with those D-backs lineups. Both of these bullpens are terrible, and then both these starting pitchers are awful too. Josh Rogers throwing from the left side. I think you'll get a fun top of the lineup stack for the Diamondbacks. I know we don't have that lineup yet, but I anticipate switch hitting Cooper Hummel, switch hitting Ketel Marte, and then Carson Kelly and Christian Walker in the 3 and 4 holes. Both of those guys can smash lefties. Rogers hasn't been hit hard so far. He will be. He really doesn't have, in my opinion, any business being a major league starter. Bullpen behind him, not any better. You can say the same thing about Zach Davies, who was pretty damn terrible last year. Again, can't even hit 90 miles per hour with the fastball. Frankly, neither of these pitchers can barely touch 90. So I think we could see a lot of runs in that Nationals game. Also, good hitting environment there. 70 degrees, wind blowing out to center, a little bit of humidity. like I said, two bad bullpens. So I do expect fireworks in that Nationals Diamondbacks game, and I'm almost hoping, Mangone, that we don't get the lineups for that game until a little bit later, right? Because we do think that keeps ownership in check a little bit. So that's my favorite game stack, D-backs Nationals. My favorite overall stack is the Yankees with the Twins coming in second for me.
Yeah, and another thing that's kind of nice about when you look at that game, it's at the end of the slate, which is kind of nice. Like if everything just like absolutely duds, right? You just sit and you see a bunch of zeros all around and no one's hitting, you're feeling real good in your spot. And that's one of the best spots to be in when you know you got all that PMR waiting to go. Yeah, it's fun to be at the top too, but you have to like worry about people chasing you and stuff. So I'm with you. I like that game. That's definitely one that I'm going to target. I think it's that one. And then I like your call with the Yankees and the Twins. The one thing about the Twins, and I think with it being a pretty good pitching slate, like Zach Greinke is definitely a guy to target. Like you talked a little bit about, it's like Zach Greinke isn't a guy who can like attack hitters and like go out there and like get the job done with like strikeouts. You know what I mean? Like guys are going to make contact. And if these Twins make contact and their price has been pretty good, I haven't looked too much at their price tag, see if they're, Gio Urshela, he's at 2.1K in that in the 4 hole, Arise at 3-1. But the nice thing about this team setup, right? You got Kepler 3-2, Sano at 2-5. You have the money then because those guys are so cheap to jam into Byron Buxton at 6-1. And maybe you guys can't do that with like their one-off. So if you put in Buxton in that whole 5-man stack, that seems pretty strong. So with you on that.
One strategy point, we were talking about it in the Discord chat over on Pure Sports, obviously. The full stack right now, especially on a little bit shorter slates, we got obviously 7 games, not that short, might not be the way to go with the way offense is just dead right now. Like it's almost like you need more upside at each position instead of the upside of the correlation, just because so many of these hitters, they're just with the way baseball's playing, it's going to be so hard for a lot of these, less power guys to do serious damage. And so that makes me, and again, just an opinion. I could certainly be proven wrong or whatever, but I kind of want more upside and individual hitters than maybe we typically try to prioritize, just because of how baseball's playing right now. I want Byron Buxton, who, it doesn't matter how the ball's flying. When he gets a hold of one, it's a home run. A Juan Soto, right? The Yankees guys, Judge and Stanton. Whereas you get the full stack and you're kind of including guys who they're going to have to get 2 or 3 hits to match just the one home run from a power guy. So, you could argue the other way where, okay, home runs are so hard to hit, let's not focus on that. But I think the proper approach to the way baseball is playing right now is to get as much legit power into your lineups as possible.
Yeah, I don't disagree on these shorter slates. I think on like when there's like a 15 gamer, it's a little different, or like tomorrow's slate on the Friday, like that. I think that would be a little bit different.
Because then you're going to get a team that does go off, right? When the more teams that have the opportunity, like just the more teams on the slate, right? If you get on a Friday slate where you get 30 teams to choose from, there's going to be a couple that do go off just by the laws of probabilities. So I agree with you. The bigger the slate, the more you need to focus on the full-on stacks.
Yeah, and DC, we just got some news. It's basketball news, but let's talk it real quick, right? Ben Simmons, he will be starting on Monday, so grab your popcorn. He's going to be out on the court finally. I know you said you'll believe it when you see it. Do you believe Ben Simmons will be on the court on Monday? Yeah. And I believe that'll be a game 4, right? So they could be down 3-0, where if they are down 3-0, it'd be like, okay, well, it's the Hail Mary. Whatever happens, happens. It's not a big deal. But what's your thoughts on Ben Simmons getting in there?
Yeah, so obviously the Nets down 2-0. That's a lot of pressure, man, for a guy who hasn't played, and can't even remember the last time Ben Simmons played basketball. To come back either down 2-1 or down 3-0, a lot of pressure either way. Almost less pressure if it's 3-0, right? You can kind of be the savior if you lose the 4th game after you didn't play in the first 3. Then you can't really place the blame on you. But for a guy whose issue right now doesn't seem to be physical, it seems to be mental why he's not playing, at least from what I can tell. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I'll be watching to see if he can perform. I hope he does. Hope he can kind of turn it around. But I have my doubts.
Yeah, like Ben Simmons, does he do the silent like fist? Like there's like the tiger, just like does he do that if they lose? Like, is he pumped? Like, yes, like we lost that game. Now I can either be the savior or it just doesn't matter. He's got to be doing that if they lose that game 3, correct?
Yeah, he's rooting for the loss here for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, secretly rooting for it, I think, but he's the type of coward to do that too.
No blame if you lose the 4th down 3-0 on your comeback, and all the credit in the world if you're down 3-0 and they win on your comeback, right? It's kind of a win-win situation for him. 2-1, a little bit of a different story.
Yeah, like on the slab, DC, you were not on your 3-on-3 team. We can be honest, you weren't the best player, but you were the Patrick Beverly. You were grinding out there. You were part of every single win. If someone replaced you and hopped in there, you want that team to lose. You're like, I want them to lose so they remember, hey, I want to keep playing with DC. Am I right?
Yeah, as Ben Simmons has his deficiencies, but they're not as the list is not as great as DC's deficiencies on the basketball court.
But you have heart, DC, and that's who I want to play next to. I want to play next to a guy with heart that's going to go out there.
You need a little talent out there, but we can be the glue guys.
I'm always down for a glue guy, so I don't want the diva on my team that's gonna hold us back. So give me the glue guys over them. But yeah, fun conversation there, talking some NBA. Obviously, we'll have NBA content tonight, 6:30. You can check out the premium show. We'll have JSU Big T. They'll be breaking down the NBA slate. You don't want to miss out that. We'll have NBA shows on the weekends too. Big T and JSU said they'll be there every single day. I'm sure I'll pop in one of the days too. Should be an awesome time. Can't wait for that. NBA season is awesome. On top of that, we have tons of stuff. Like we got MMA this weekend. DC, what's the card this weekend? Do you know if it's a good one or what do we got here for MMA?
Yeah. No pay-per-view. So just kind of a little bit of a boring card. But, me and Tyler were talking yesterday. It's like, we'll take, they don't have to be the highest quality fights. We'll take, mid to low level UFC fights over no fights at all. So yeah, we break it down. The non-pay-per-view cards, that show is always on Friday. And then we do the pay-per-view on Saturday. So we'll be doing that show, I think at 2 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow for UFC. A couple decent fights. Again, not the best card, but we'll break them all down as we always do.
Yep, subscribe to the channel to get notified when it goes live. 2 p.m. like you said. Like the video again, that helps us out a ton. We'll give out those plays of the day as long as the likes look good. So let's push those home. Let's go talk about this the catchers now and discuss that. At the top at the catcher position, I know at the bottom, Gary Sanchez is probably going to be one. Is he in the lineup, though, for sure? No, he's not. Yeah, it's the perfect day to sit him. Grandal, that's the guy at the top I was thinking of. He's obviously in play. You can always play Salvador Perez, but Joe Ryan's not this guy that we're looking to attack completely. But you did make a point, DC, like Joe Ryan will challenge guys. Wonder if he'll challenge Salvador Perez. But I do think Grandal is going to be the most popular catcher on this slate. 4.1K. Plesac is not a guy that I'm scared of at all. I think people will go Zach Collins as well, just because they see 2.7K, the 4-hitter in the Blue Jays offense. Like, people will definitely be interested in that, and he's been hitting pretty well. What's your thoughts overall on this catcher position?
Yeah, a few good options. You hit on most of them there. The guys that I would throw in there, Eric Haas, hitting 6th for the Tigers against what we think will be a fairly popular Jordan Montgomery. And then, assuming he's in the lineup, I think he will be, Carson Kelly against Josh Rogers. Should be hitting 3rd. Has really done absolutely nothing so far this year. He's hitting 069 with no home runs and no RBI, so that's a little concerning. But early enough, he's probably faced just a couple lefties so far. And notorious lefty masher is Carson Kelly. He's 3,500, and he doesn't have that check mark starting lineup next to him. So I think people might kind of scroll on past him. So I do like Carson Kelly a little bit there.
Yep, definitely those Arizona guys. Looks like we're going to be looking to go back to them. I do want to mention, someone in the chat said, I believe it was Chris Wall, and he was talking about, hey, Discord, is it free? Is it just for members? It's just for members, and I want to extend it. This will probably be the last day I do it. Maybe you'll get lucky tomorrow, but I'm giving out some swag, right? If you sign up now, new member, you sign up. Let's say even if you re-up, right? If you're someone that is not a member, you show me proof of it. You'll send me your email in a DM on @Travis Mangone on Twitter. Happy to send over a piece of swag if you're a new sign up. So happy to extend that offer. I'm sending the list to Amber though soon. So we'll get that done. And if you're in the chat somewhere, Joey Work, I can easily get you on that list. So, feel free to DM me. I know you've been trying to get some swag. It sounds like Uncle T's hooking you up though. So I don't think I need to, but hey, Joey Work, if you're hanging out and you need some swag, happily ask me. I can get it your way. I know a guy. So And there he is in the chat. He says, how can I get some swag? So there he is. Joey Work, always looking to get that swag from us at Run Pure Sports. But DC, let's go over to the first base position. And Vlad Guerrero Jr., he sits at the top, and he's always in play, right? It's like Ohtani. It's a great hitter. You can always plug him into your lineups. And you talked about wanting to get a guy that can just hit you 2 home runs, and there's one right there. But there's other ones you can go to as well. Brandon Belt, he has some power and pop. Pete Alonso, another guy, has some power. Jose Abreu, another one with power that can easily get the job done. We talked about liking Washington, and Zach Davies is terrible. Why not Josh Bell, even though he's not a sexy name? Anthony Rizzo against Michael Pineda. That seems like a good option. Or you can go down to a guy like Christian Walker, who is going up against a bad lefty and is 3K. You got Trey Mancini, who has some power and pop. If he's in that lineup, I think he could be an interesting option that has some power at 2.4K. So what do you want to do here, DC? I just rattle off a ton of names. I'm not saying I have like one over the other, but the point I'm getting at is first base is loaded today. Seems like a spot where if you're not trying to find some power, you might put yourself in a really bad position.
Yeah, a lot of good options here, obviously, as you typically see with first base. I'll go over a few of my favorites. I do like Carlos Carrasco. I'll have plenty of him myself, but if you're not on him in the individual lineup, I think Brandon Belt's a really good choice. On most of baseball struggling with offense right now, the hitters that are hot, that are hitting, are kind of appealing, right? The guys that are getting it done a little bit. Again, we don't want to buy too much into the small sample, but early on, it's good to see production. Brandon Belt, 4 home runs already, including one yesterday. I know Carrasco's a good pitcher, but nobody's infallible by any means on this slate from a pitching perspective. So I do like Brandon Belt quite a bit. You'll get him, I assume, very, very low ownership. But yeah, he's looked awesome so far. Anthony Rizzo, I have as number 2, another hitter that's looked good for the Yankees and in my favorite stack against Pineda. So plenty of Rizzo for me. The cheaper guys that I'm most likely to play, Spencer Torkelson, Detroit rookie. He's got a couple home runs, cheap and hitting 7th against Montgomery, not the ideal lineup spot. Christian Walker, again, very high on Arizona. Josh Bell, assuming he's in there. How much is Josh Bell?
He's 4.8. I think he goes, or he's either 4.8 or 4.4.
Okay,
he goes kind of 4.4.
He's going to be out of the lineup. Removed yesterday and needs to get an MRI. So I assume he will be. He won't be in there. But I did like him quite a bit. And then one maybe somewhat sneaky guy has done nothing so far, but Miguel Sano. Obviously, his weakness, if you follow baseball, you're probably aware, just strikes out constantly, right? One of the highest strikeout rates in the major leagues each and every season. But Greinke, you mentioned, has struck out 1 batter through 2 games. So you're telling me Miguel Sano has a much higher chance of making contact at all than he typically does. That's appealing. And then also Sano, another guy, big power, right? When he gets a hold of one, it's not going to matter how the ball's flying or the ballpark. It's going to go. So he's got that going for him, which I think is important right now. In Greinke last year, his biggest weakness was to right-handed power hitters, which obviously, describes Miguel Sano perfectly. So I think he's got a lot going for him. He always struggles early in the season, and he's just not a comfortable guy to click on, but he's 2,500, and the matchup looks really, really good to me. So Miguel Sano will be on a fair number of my rosters for sure.
Yeah, my one concern with Sano, not that I don't think he has the power to get you home, but I feel like if you miss at first base, you got to make it up in other spots, and it's going to hurt. That's the downside really worries me. That's the one thing I'll say. But
that makes sense. Yeah,
the price is good though, right? I mean, yeah, it's if you're I think if you're building out your lineups and you like what you have and you fall for a cheap guy, I don't think it's a bad way to go. I actually just pulled up. I figured sometimes with these pitchers, and people love the talking point of it, whether you like BVP or not. I figured I'd bring it up. Let's look what it is. No one has a home run against Greinke in 44 at bats, and yes, I don't know when these at bats all happen, so that matters, but not the greatest BVPs for the old Twins. If you're a BVP truther, no home runs in the 44 at bats. And Sano, he's 1 for 5 with the old 3 Ks. So I don't know when Greinke was pitching against him though, right? So it's just probably too small of a sample, but it's a fun talking point. People always have hot takes on BVP. Some love it, some don't. But that's what you got to do with first base. A lot of different ways you can go. You can go up, you can go down. Definitely a good position today. Let's talk about that second base position, and let's start with Ketel Marte at 4.9K. probably my favorite second baseman if salary does not matter. DJ LeMahieu at 4.4K. If you're attacking Pineda, not a bad way to go with him. He's definitely a good option, I think, there. Let's say Pineda is a guy that, you don't get much of, then you get into that bullpen too. DJ LeMahieu can tee up anyone, so I think he's a good option. And then as a cheap guy, Luis Ariz, one of those twins, batting in the 3-hole. Not this power guy that you love, but hey, for 3.1K, if he can grab me a couple base hits, I'll move on and just figure it out at other positions. Certainly fine with that. So overall, those are my top 3 guys. We'll go with Marte, we'll go with LeMahieu, and we'll go with Ariz. How about you, DC?
Yeah, one problem I have with LeMahieu, out of Yankee Stadium in Detroit, they've got that, most of his power is to right center field. And Detroit's really, really tough. Nick Castellanos it held him back from hitting home runs when he was a Tiger. So I'm a little worried about that with LeMahieu. Would probably keep him mostly in stacks. Obviously, I do like the Yankees, so I'll probably have some exposure to him. Same thing could be said about Luis Ariz, but cheap enough, 3,100 hitting third that he's capable of getting 2 or 3 hits and overcoming the lack of power. But I am with you, Mangone. Ketel Marte, assuming he's in there, which I'm pretty sure he will be. He is my favorite option. He's expensive, 4,900, but a switch hitter, can hit pretty well from the right side. And he's going to have great matchups regardless of who Washington pitches, because they don't have really any good available pitchers to throw in this game. So yeah, Ketel Marte, we'll certainly include him on my Arizona stacks. And then that same game, we should see Cesar Hernandez leading off against Zach Davies. He's a pitcher I want to target. I do like the Nationals quite a bit here. So he makes the list at 3,400. Cheaper guys, I don't really see anyone. I don't think I'm going to play Cato down at 2,000. Seems like a pinch hit risk to me. Clement against Cease, no thanks. So I do want to spend, I think, at least 3K and up at second base.
Yep, I'd agree with you. I think that's a good call there. Second base, definitely, it's not the most loaded position, but there's some good options for sure. So I'm not going to just completely punt or take some crazy play. Let's go over to the third base position, and let's talk about the punt option in Gio Urshela. He is only 2.1K. Let's see how he did yesterday, because I didn't follow baseball as closely yesterday, so I want to see what he did. I think he ended up dudding, and I had Devers. What did Devers end up doing? He was my play of the day. Did he do good enough to close the gap? 7. It wasn't amazing, but hey, still cash some teams. But I think Gio Urshela is going to be very owned again. I'm assuming Gio Urshela was not on the winning teams, DC. So that's just the point of, if people are going to go all the way down at third base to someone like Gio Urshela, you can go up to a top and get different. Like with a Jose Ramirez that people will probably not play against still and Cease. They probably won't play Devers as much. DJ LeMahieu, you could plug him at third base. Eduardo Escobar, you can always take a lefty against a guy like Desclafani. So there are options at the top, but saving the salary with a guy like Gio Urshela, it does feel kind of appealing here on this slate. You can also go Luis Ariz, we talked about at 3.1K. What's your thoughts overall here on this third base position?
Yeah, I think this might be a position I take a one-off or two. I'm not really interested in stacking Boston against Gausman, but Devers the best play in that lineup. And, I know there are, of course, cleanup hitter Gio Urshela, 2,100, pretty good matchup against Greinke. I get it. Of course, if that's what fits your lineup, by all means. But I do think his upside is fairly limited. So I like paying up for Devers, and then I especially like paying up for Jose Ramirez, who is the best hitter, I think, in baseball so far, just absolutely crushing it. I mean, you can see by the DraftKings points per game, 14.6, when everyone else in the league seems like they're sitting at 5, 6, or 7. Just absolutely on fire. This whole Cleveland offense is really, you'll get him super low owned, I assume, because he's going up against Dylan Cease, who we are pretty sure is going to be the most popular pitcher on the slate. So big leverage there, right? At a position where the mid-range doesn't look that great to me. I think most people are going to spend down to Gio Urshela. I bet he'll be the most popular third baseman on the slate. So makes sense to me to kind of go all the way up top, and you're automatically going to be a little bit different, right? Because you're spending at third base. That'll make you go cheaper at other positions. Maybe, some people are spending up on because they had the punt third baseman. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like Jose Ramirez, both from just how he's looked right now, and then also from a game theory perspective, I think he makes a bunch of sense. So Jose Ramirez is going to be the number one guy for me up there.
Yeah, and like you talked about liking the Yankees stack, DC. Like I mentioned it before, but DJ LeMahieu, plug him into that third base, and like if you want to go like Kettle Marte, we talked about it second.
Yeah.
Like that's a good way to do it too. So I don't mind that route. I'm trying to look too. First base. Okay, so I guess I was thinking like Christian Walker. I'm trying to think of a nice like Arizona and Yankees stack. That's what I was trying to think through. Like, you put Marte there, you put DJ LeMahieu. Yeah, you can maybe like make a nice little stack with that. Plug in one of the catchers for Arizona, and then figure out what to do with the last spot. Maybe you throw it into the outfield. But that's an idea that talking through things, I don't mind that route. Let's go over to the shortstop position. Before we do though, guys, please like, subscribe to the video. It helps us out a ton. This will be the only free show today, but we'll have a premium show with JSU, Big T. So go sign up at Run Pure Sports right now. Be able to check out that show and check out all the content that we have over here. And hit that like. That way we can give away those plays of the day. We're at 335 watching, 130 likes. DC, what do you want to make the number to give out those likes? Do we want to push it? Do we want to make it simple? What do we think?
We're nearing the end of the show. We got to get to 160.
Cool. I was going to be easy and say 150, but I was feeling a higher number. So 160 feels like the sweet spot. I'm in.
Me too, but I tacked another 10 on for the people. Come on, we've been on fire. We're doing the morning show. We're up early, Mangone. It's not even 10 o'clock here, and we're giving the free content to the people. So hit the damn like button.
That's true. And listen, DC ran 10 miles yesterday. I mean, listen, he needs to get some sleep. So
I got another 10 coming once we hit lock on these games.
Yeah, yep, definitely. So let's get that going. Let's get those likes up. Let's talk about the next position. What do we got? We're at shortstop. So you could go Tim Anderson at the top. It's a lot of money to spend at the shortstop position today. I don't know if I want to spend my money all the way up.
This position's kind of rough, to be honest. There's some big names, but they all got tough matchups.
Yeah, like there are definitely guys to go up to at the top, but like you can't spend like all the way at the top for every position, right? Like at some point you are going to have to save some money. And yes, you could save with a Gio Urshela, who we just talked about. Let me figure out who at the top I would like though. Like Carlos Correa is one I think I'd be interested at 4.7K. I don't mind a Bo Bichette as a one-off. It doesn't feel like a bad one-off position today. I'm not going Lurie Garcia at 3.8. I don't know, DC. Sometimes in life you just have to have like principles, and I'm not playing Lurie Garcia. I'm just not doing it. Sorry, you can play him, not me. I'm trying to figure out who the cheap guy is that I would go to as like a punt, if anything. Like, could it be a Nick Gordon at 2-1 just because Greinke, he gives up contact and like he's 2-1? I'm just trying to get a couple points and move on. I don't know. It's not the greatest position for sure at the bottom. And when I see not a great position, I kind of want to punt, but maybe I do have to go up at the top. I'm struggling here, DC. You got anything to kind of help me out here at the shortstop position?
Yeah, we haven't talked much about the Mets. I think they're a little bit interesting against Desclafani, who pitched pretty well last year, but not as good away from home out of San Francisco. Francisco Lindor has been another guy who's got off to a pretty good start. Looks like a resurgent season for him. I think he's my favorite up there at 5,700. I'll stick with my guy, Brandon Crawford, who you'll get super low owned. I like him and Brandon Belt, by far my two favorite bats in that San Francisco lineup. If you are not on Carrasco, Correa, I think one interesting thing, man, going from a game theory perspective, maybe playing Correa and Buxton, right? The expensive guys and the guys with the big bats at the top of that lineup, and then just moving off the Twins, right? Leaving off Arias, who's going to be popular, I think, at 3,100, leaving off Gio Urshela, who's super cheap at 2,100, hitting cleanup, and just take, maybe skip those guys and then go to a Miguel Sano, because I think most people that play Buxton and Correa are probably going to include the cheap 3 and 4 hitters with them, right, on the Twins lineup. So that, from a game theory perspective, it makes sense to just play those two power bats at the top. You're really kind of chasing the home runs with Buxton and Correa, which wouldn't leave anyone on base to drive in for those cheaper 3 and 4 hole hitters who really don't have much power to speak of. So just thinking through it, that makes sense to me from a game theory perspective.
Yeah, and we got Nadesify in the chat saying Anderson BVP, and that's DC. Listen, I'm going to call out a BVP truther right now. 4 for 18 with 2 home runs. That's not BVP, right, DC? We can't do that.
It's correct? BVP, but it's not enough good BVP to make you change your opinion. But he's a fine play anyway, so
Yeah, I'm not.
But I'm not doing it because of the BVP there.
There is a Lindor. Lindor's like 5 for 12, but it's just fine. 2 home runs, but Lindor's definitely the one that, like, I think Lindor, Correa are ones I'm getting sold on. The one thing I like about Correa is, and I haven't built a ton of lineups, but he's 4.7. It's not as bad as some of those other price tags, but he does come with a little bit more ownership. So, yeah, we'll see what I end up doing there. I don't have a strong lean on what to do at shortstop. I'll run some stuff. We got time. It's not like lock is coming up right here, but yeah, we're an hour in the show, so we got to close this thing out. We're going to close it out with the outfield here. DC, you talked about Byron Buxton at the top. I like Byron Buxton today. Think he's a really good option. We talked about Washington a little bit. We talked about jamming in a guy like Juan Soto to just grab a home run and move on. Well, he is 5.8K. Definitely someone that I think I can get behind here on this slate. We talked about attacking Michael Pineda, who throws meatballs across the plate. You know who smashes some meatballs? Aaron Judge. He will crush it. Nelson Cruz, 4.4K. Another option against Davies I think you can go to. He sucks against lefties. He sucks against righties. We saw him, grab an RBI single yesterday. So Nelson Cruz starting to get a little bit better here. There's definitely some good options here at the top, DC. What are you doing here up top?
Yeah, Byron Buxton, the top overall bat on the slate for me, back from a little bit of an injury scare, but obviously healthy. And I just really like the matchup for him. He just crushing the ball before he went down for that few days. So Buxton, someone that I'm going to prioritize. Same thing with Juan Soto. I mean, if you follow baseball at all, you know what to expect from Juan Soto. Looks great to start the year. Great matchup against a bad right-handed pitcher and a bad bullpen. Soto would be second. Talked about the Yankees guys already. I prefer Judge over Stanton, but I think both guys squarely in play, as are two more Yankees outfielders, cheaper guys. Joey Gallo hitting sixth, hasn't done much, but again, I do really like this matchup for the Yankees against Michael Pineda, and then Aaron Hicks, who's leading off 3,400. All four of those guys, I think, are in play, depending on just your roster construction. I think can help you decide which ones, because I think it's fairly close between those guys once you take the salary into consideration. Nelson Cruz, again, hasn't done a whole lot yet, but has looked better at the plate recently, despite the results not being there. I really like that Soto Cruz stack, assuming they're both in the lineups. Again, one of the few lineups that we don't have quite yet. Cheaper guys. So yeah, the Yankees guys, 3,500, 3,400 for Gallo and Hicks. Max Kepler, 3,200, hitting fifth for the Twins. I think I would prefer to go him over a guy like Gio Urshela. I know different positions, different salaries, but I just think just more legit power there. I don't see a ton of cheap guys that I'm dying to play. Mark Canha, good hitter, 2,600. Don't mind that. Desclafani can give up home runs at times. And then if you're not on Cease, which I'm not today, Josh Naylor, hitting fifth, decent hitter for Cleveland. Maybe could pair him with a Jose Ramirez in a mini Cleveland stack. So just a few guys, but I think this is a position where, for the most part, I kind of want to spend here if I can. I think some of the very best hitters on the slate, specifically Buxton and Soto, on a tough overall hitting slate, those guys I think kind of stand out as having a lot more upside than most of the hitters on the slate.
Yeah, I'd say not a lot of cheap guys I love, like you said, but listen, Joey Gallo at 3.5, that's a pretty good price tag for the power. Aaron Hicks, another one in the one hole, 3.4, seems like a good cash game option. Same with the Dalton Varsho, another good option at 3.3 if he's going to be in the lineup. And then Max Kepler, another one I want to call out. Another kind of cash game guy is like a Ramil Tapia batting first. They're going to get the full 9 innings too, so you might even get 5 at bats unless they pinch hit him. He's worth mentioning. A Cooper Hummel, not terrible, but not someone I love. And the one really cheap guy, like if let's say you're building out that team, DC, and like you landed in the outfield as the last spot, and you're like, I got like 2.4K left. Trey Mancini has power. Like if you're looking for a power bat, it's going to probably be a 0, or it's going to be like he's going to get an RBI double or get you a home run. It's just how Trey Mancini is. You can put him in there. I'm not saying I want to target Blackburn, but if you need a 2.4K guy that has power, that's the guy that I would lean to. I do think there's some really good power bats though up in the outfield. Like it does feel like a good position to maybe spend. There are some good guys though in the 3K range that you can definitely get behind. Like I said, Gallo I think is my favorite power guy in that value range that I would go to. DC, so I think that's the outfield. Any final thoughts here before we kind of close out the stacks and our plays of the day?
No, good talking through it all. It's a fun slate. I think there's a lot of different ways you can go. There's a number of pitchers we like. I don't think we're going to see. I mean, who's going to be the most popular stack? Maybe the Yankees, I guess, but I think the Twins will have some ownership. But it's going to be spread out all over the place. So I would recommend, playing your favorite lineups. I don't think you necessarily need to dictate your play based on ownership. especially at the hitting positions today. It's just going to be spread out all over the place. So go with the guys that you're most confident in.
Yeah, if you're a one lineup guy, today's a day to MME, right? Like I think it's a good MME slate. So get in on that. It's a good time. Sign up. Try out SaberSim. One thing that you can do on SaberSim that I think is cool is like, let's say you think a team sucks. Like you're like, I really don't think this implied run total is 4.5. I think it should be 1. You can just change it in SaberSim and adjust all the projections for it from that team, which is an awesome feature. So great way to use that in the lineup builder.
Yep.
If you haven't signed up, definitely check that out. But let's finalize our stacks, DC. Give me your top 3 stacks. I know it's not easy, but who do you got as your favorite 3 stacks on the slate?
Yeah, I'll go Yankees number 1. I'm going D-backs and Nationals 2 and 3. I mentioned the Twins previously; they're going to be 4, but I really do like that D-backs Nationals game for offense. So Yankees 1, and then D-backs 2, Nationals 3.
Yeah, man, I want to see that lineup for the Nationals. That's like one thing I wish I knew before. I want to make them my number 1 stack, but like I don't know how they're going to fit as a 5-man. They might fit better as like a 3-man. That's one of my concerns. That's how I feel about both those teams. Like I like them as like more. I'll go with this. My 1 and 2, like Arizona and Nationals, without the lineups, I like them more as 3-man stacks. Maybe one can win out as a 5-man, and then depending on what the lineup is. And my favorite 5-man stack. I'm kind of with you. Like it's Twins or Yankees, but I don't know. I could see myself shifting onto the White Sox if people aren't going to be on it.
You love your White Sox. You can't abandon the White Sox.
I want to. The one thing I'm mad about yesterday, DC, is like they had more ownership than I thought they would compared to like the Guardians yesterday. They were like the same ownership as the Guardians, and they were going against Keuchel. So I kind of feel dumb. Like I thought we were getting them at like 5 or like 2%, and we just didn't get that. That was like one reason I was kind of a little frustrated by that slate. And I think the reason why we're getting that, DC, is we just have salary to spend because they're making guys way too cheap where you're able to get in some really good and big bats. So that's just something worth looking at. At the start of like any season in DFS, I like to see where ownership's going. And if things surprise me, and like my thought process was like, oh, like the pricing algorithm has guys way too cheap. Like I think I'm pretty good at reading that. And I think that's a good read that I've had. So I want to look at ownership a little bit more on that. But yeah, I think Yankees and Twins are one of the best ones. I'm trying to find that contrarian one. I feel like it's probably going full on 5-mans with those Washington and Arizona. So need to get that lineup. I think that's really important, but that'll keep ownership down.
We don't want the lineups, Mangone. We don't want the lineups for the next hour. We want the low ownership out in the Nationals Diamondbacks game.
That's fair. What time is lock? Lock is 11:40 our time, DC. Is that correct?
11:10 our time. Yeah, in an hour from now.
All right, hour from now. I was hoping to make lineups and then go hit the gym, but we're gonna wait. We're gonna sit here for an hour. We're gonna grind out that edge. We'll be in the Discord chat.
Yeah.
But before we do that, let's do our plays of the day. DC, let's go to you first. I'm gonna give a pitcher too. I'm gonna give a hitter as well. Who do you got though? Who are your plays of the day?
Yeah, pitcher. I'll be spread out in my own lineups today, but I will have, I think, the most exposure to Paul Blackburn for the Oakland A's. Again, a slight weather concern out in Oakland, but I'm fairly certain it's going to play without issue. So, yeah, I love that park. He's looked good his first 2 starts. Love the matchup against Baltimore, and maybe a little bit lower ownership, maybe due to weather concerns or just because he's not as big a name as some of these other guys. So Paul Blackburn, the pitcher. I got my Byron Buxton jersey on, back from injury. Great matchup against Greinke. I got to go with Buxton as the hitter of the day.
All right, Buxton is your guy. DC, one thing I'll say, I just had one of my buddies DM me. He said, I didn't get to watch the morning show, had too many work calls, but you know what he said? He said he popped in and hit the like, right? That's a good friend, right?
What a friend.
He said he popped in. He wants the recap. I'm going to give him the recap shortly in the DMs. But guys, we got 200 watching who haven't hit it, so hit that like.
Yeah, much better than all these Twitter, these YouTube free rollers who can't even hit the like despite watching every show. Come on.
I know, very hurtful. But
did we get to 160? We must have got to 160.
Yeah, we got there. We're at 181. They did a good job. But yeah, I just thought that was a good comment that someone said to me, and I'm going to give them the rundown of our overall thoughts. My pitcher is Kevin Gausman. That'll be my play of the day at the pitcher position. My hitter, who was I going to go with? I'm blanking now of who I had before. I mean, I can't give him out. Here's the thing. I want to give out a national, right, DC? But the problem is, I don't know what the line is going to be. I don't want to give out Juan Soto because that's like the chalkiest thing in the world. I don't know if I want to give out Nelson Cruz because of what happened the last time. That was very, very hurtful. Here's one we'll go with. I like him. Got a lot of power and pop at the outfield position. Let's go with Joey Gallo.
I like it.
He's a first or last kind of guy. Can either win you the slate or not that he'll lose you the slate. You can win slates with zeros as well. Cheap enough too. And Michael Pineda is a guy that we can definitely attack. So let's go with Joey Gallo as my play of the day. DC, final thoughts here before we get on out of here.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty well. Should be a fun slate of baseball. Great MME slate. Use those tools over at SaberSim if you have them, and hopefully we'll see some RPS logos up top today.
Yep, we've definitely seen a lot of them up top so far, so definitely hoping to see that today. One last question. What stack do you guys like in the best for the slate from Easy Money in terms of 5-3, 4-4? On FanDuel, I'm running a ton of 4-4s. That's my plan today. DK, I'm going to start with 5-3s. Look and see what kind of happens. 5-2-1s, 5-1-1s, whatever. But I'm going to look at the 4-mans. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to run everything. I'm going to find the setup that I like with all like the guys X'd in and out and stacks X'd in and out. And then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run the 4-mans and see the difference between them and then kind of figure it out from there. Maybe some 4-3-1s. Maybe from I'll look and figure it out. DC, what's kind of your thoughts on that? That's kind of my approach. I'm not saying I'm married to the idea of doing the 4-mans, but I don't know. I might look at teams and not like what I'm seeing with the 5-mans. And then I look at the 4-mans and be like, okay, this looks a lot better. And based on everything you're saying, I think it's something we should consider a little more.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some weird looking lineups perhaps at the top today that kind of focused on upside instead of maximum correlation. That's my I guess outside the box prediction for this particular slate.
All right, cool. Well, that is going to wrap it up for us, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us on the morning show for me and my friend Midget DC. We'll see you guys.